Hello, everybody. I thought I'd take a moment to talk about something that kind of intersects between my interest in NLP and my faith. In NLP, there's a really well-known person named Robert Dilts. Now, Robert Dilts is best known for, excuse me, my hair's getting in the way, for sleight of mouth. And much like how sleight of hand is the ability to use misdirection for close-up magic, sleight of mouth takes certain formulaic methods of reframing to help people view the thought or the incident in a different way. And Robert Dilts did this by modeling Richard Bandler during one of his talks on reframing. And really, while the average person may know of Dilts for his sleight of mouth, Dilts is best known in the NLP community for his modeling projects. Modeling, you see, is the foundation of NLP. Everything else about NLP, every technique, every principle is built on modeling. So what is modeling, you might ask? Well, the way that Bandler and Grinder did it, Bandler originally was just unconsciously taking in all kinds of information about how people like Fritz Perls and Virginia Satir and Dr. Milton Erickson were doing what they did. And he just unconsciously took it all in and reproduced the formula, getting the same results. John Grinder came along and he used transformational grammar and other techniques of analyzing communication on many different levels to break down what Bandler was doing and make it explainable, so much so that people could step by step learn how to do what Bandler was doing, so that Grinder himself could learn how to do what Bandler was doing. And then, so they could teach other people both how to do it and how to teach it to others. And that's how modeling goes. Now, a lot of people take exception to the fact that modeling is often done using, say, videos or audio tapes. Well, nowadays they don't have tapes anymore, but videos and audio of people doing things, or written accounts, or pictures even. And they take exception to that because they believe the best way to model is to be in the room with someone while they're doing what they do best and just absorb that information from that angle. But as we've seen in this explanation, Bandler and Grinder didn't start off modeling that way at all. Bandler modeled from audio recordings of Fritz Perls and from audio recordings of Virginia Satir. And they also modeled from written works from these people. So that's not where I differ with, where I beg to differ with Robert Dilts, because Robert Dilts is well known for his modeling projects regarding people who, brilliant minds, who are long gone and did not leave behind anything but writings about them, like Einstein or Mark Twain or Julius Caesar. No. I believe Dilts has gotten it wrong about Jesus Christ. And not completely, but here's what I mean. Let's start with Dilts' intention. Dilts wanted to model Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus Christ, for 3 reasons. Yes, sometimes I'm stupid and I only hold up 2 fingers when I mean 3. But Dilts wanted to model Jesus to learn how he experienced and learned things, how he applied and taught his wisdom, and how he miraculously healed people. Well, here's the problem. You can't learn that stuff. You see, Jesus wasn't just a wise man. In fact, the only other parallel that we can draw to Jesus is probably, as far as his mind goes, is probably Solomon. And Solomon got a lot of his information from studying. In fact, in Ecclesiastes, he says that he studied all kinds of things in the pursuit of meaning. The problem is, even Solomon was not a worldly mastermind. He was not a worldly genius. He got his wisdom from God. He did not get it from another person. Sure, he learned from all kinds of different sources, but his wisdom came from God. And so it was with Christ. There is in Christianity the idea of the hypostatic union, which basically means, and this seems contradictory, but it's not, Christ is both 100% God and 100% man. Let me put it like this. Christ is 100% God and 100% man. And the two are wrapped up in one being without being mixed, without one part or the other being left off. And there's no conflict between the God and the man. So Christ's wisdom, his way of thinking, is divine. And as for his healing, the problem is anyone who tries to model Christ's healing abilities is going to end up doing faith healing. Now, I have no problem with what they call psychoneurobiology, which is the study of how the mind affects the neurology of the body, which affects the body's ability to heal and do other things. I have no problem with that. I think it's a valuable and useful thing to study and to practice. What I have a problem with is faith healers using psychoneurobiology and calling it a divine gift. It's not a divine gift. I mean, yes, God built it into our bodies and our minds to be able to work together to heal us, but it's not a divine gift as in God giving someone the ability to heal us themselves. No. And that's the difference between Christ and faith healers. You see, faith healers rely on hypnosis. And they can rely on a rapid induction or they can rely on a slow induction. And how do I put this? The way that faith healers work is a lot like the way that Dr. Erickson overcame polio for many, many years. As a child, Erickson had polio and was paralyzed. He not only had strong enough will to stay alive when the doctors thought he would die, but he had a strong enough will that as a teenager, he taught himself how to walk so well that he took a cross-country trip with a kayak and made it all the way back home without a serious incident. And part of that is due to expectancy. This is where faith healers get their idea that they are following in the footsteps of Jesus. You see, expectancy is when you have so much faith in something that you're going to force your body to act like it's happening, no matter what. And they see in the Bible where Christ said, your faith has made you whole, or your faith has saved you. And they automatically think, oh, there's expectancy. No. You see, the difference between that and what Christ did is this. There is a space in the Bible where Christ went to a certain town, and it says that he could not do many miracles there because of the lack of faith. It doesn't say that he couldn't do any miracles there because of the lack of faith, just not many. Now that may mean that that there were just a few people who had faith and he could work miracles on them, or could mean that he was still able to work miracles without people having faith. Just like he worked a miracle on Lazarus without Lazarus having faith, because Lazarus was dead. And he raised him back to life. Here's what I believe that means. There are some people out there who are so in denial, who are so against faith, who are so against certain types of faith, that they will not only deny that anything has happened when it obviously has, but they will go so far as to make themselves, if they are recipients of God's favor, they will go so far as to make themselves sick or to make themselves hurt, and then claim that they were that way the whole time and it couldn't have been otherwise. That's the difference. On the one hand, you have expectancy. On the other hand, you have denial, or a lack of denial. Now, the problem with Dilts trying to model Jesus' ability to heal is that he has to read into the Bible what isn't there and read out of the Bible what is there in order to make Jesus' healing basically the same as how a faith healer heals. You see, faith healers, when they use a rapid induction, they put someone into a trance like that. Jesus didn't put people into a trance to heal them at all. Faith healers put people into a trance in order to get them receptive to suggestions. Jesus didn't do that. In fact, let me give you an example. There was a man who was laid up at the pool, I believe it was in Bethesda or Bethsaida, and at a certain time it was believed that an angel would come down from heaven and stir up the waters, and the first person in the water would be healed. This poor guy couldn't walk at all. So he couldn't get into the waters on time. Jesus went up to him and said, "Do you want to be healed?" The man gave an excuse. Well, not an excuse, but he gave his reason for why he hasn't been healed yet. Probably because he felt like Jesus was being accusatory. I'm sure somebody or other was saying, "Well, you just don't want to be healed." Just like faith healers say today about people who don't get healed at their crusades. So he tells him, "Sir, I have nobody to carry me over there, but while I'm trying to get into the pool, somebody else comes along and gets in there." Jesus doesn't put him into a trance. Jesus doesn't make him hyper-suggestive or hyper-receptive. Jesus doesn't build up his expectancy at all. He just tells him, "Rise up, take up your bed, and go home." The man does it. At that very moment, he is healed. That flies in the face of faith healing. As for his modeling how Christ thinks, how Christ feels, I think that's great. You see, I think that as Christians, we're struggling and striving and achieving that goal. We should all be looking to make ourselves more like Christ, to listen with his ears, to see with his eyes, to feel with his heart. But I think he's doing it in I'm going to say robotic fashion. I think he's gotten too wrapped up in strategies and representational systems. Now, the representational systems are sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Strategies are how you think about something as you go through an entire thought process. I think he's gotten so wrapped up in those that he's missing the forest for the trees. Or, to use a quote that's often attributed to Dr. Erickson about Bandler and Grinder, I think he's trying to crack the nut on how it worked, but he's running away with the shell and leaving the nut behind. You see, there are times when Christ explains his parables to his disciples, and that is a perfect opportunity to find out how he thinks, because the parable is a symbol or metaphor that relates to something in real life. It relates to something real and actual that's going on right then and there. And there are also times when he's talking to people, directly talking to them. And I think that also teaches us how he thinks and how he feels. Now, I have nothing against Robert Dilts at all. I think, well, I don't really know Robert Dilts in the slightest, so I couldn't really tell you anything about him. I think his attempt to model Jesus was probably done out of good intentions, and I think it can have good results. I just don't think that there's any way to model his ability to heal or his wisdom. And I think that the way he's modeling the way that he thinks is going about it in the wrong way. Especially since you're talking about modeling the way God himself thinks. But I think, ultimately, all of us as Christians should be trying to model Christ in the best way we can. And I think that NLP can help in that regard to some degree. I just think we shouldn't be missing the forest for the trees. Anyway, that was my rant. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you all have a great day. And I don't know what I'll talk about next time, but hopefully it'll be something useful and important and valuable and uplifting to you.